What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast. It's week 17. It's the final regular season pick show for the Angle of Pursuit. Brian Twining, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, man. I am so excited for this week of picks. I mean, we got the final week of the NFL season, and this is the most difficult week to make picks. And we have the college football playoff and a few other bowl games coming up here. So this is a fantastic weekend for bettors.
Yeah. So we got a lot to get into. We're obviously going to talk week 17 picks. I'm going to hit you with some playoff scenarios right here and kind of figure that out. We'll obviously have some picks for the bowl games, including the college football playoff. It is New Year's Eve. I am ready to talk some football. Not that. Let's talk some week 17 playoff scenarios. So, Brian, I have it all written down. I'm going to hit you with what needs to happen for these teams to make the playoffs, and then we're going to look at some playoff to make the playoff odds and see if we can't piece some stuff together, because there is a couple ways to attack it. So first off, let's start with Baltimore. If they win, they're in. If they don't win, they need the Browns or Colts to lose. Obviously it's an interesting scenario with the Colts playing Jacksonville and the Browns playing the Steelers with Mason Rudolph. We could talk about both those games, obviously, but Baltimore, you got the game in front of you. You got the Bengals, like that should be a win. That should be easy. The Browns win, they're in. If the Browns don't win, the Colts lose to Jacksonville. The Browns are in again. They can also make it with a Titans loss, and if the Dolphins and Ravens win. So they have multiple outs, which is always a good thing, which, we're talking about finding ways to make bets. We always want to have multiple ways for things to happen and not just need a very specific scenario. The Titans, if they win the division. They're the 4 seed. They're in the playoffs. Awesome. They also win the division and make the playoffs. The Colts loss. If they lose and the Colts win, they would need the Dolphins or Ravens to lose to get in. So there's a lot going on there. We'll talk about that game because that game scares me a little bit. The Rams win, they're in. If the Bears lose, they're in. If the Dolphins win, they're in. If the Ravens, Colts, or Browns lose, the Dolphins are in. So the Dolphins have a
lot of opportunities. Yeah.
The Colts need to win or plus so the Colts have to win, plus that one of the Ravens, Dolphins, or Cleveland has to lose. So there's a chance that the 11-5 Indianapolis Colts don't make the playoffs, which is wild.
That is bonkers.
So that's interesting. We'll see what happens there. The Bears, if they win, they're in. If the Cardinals lose, they're in. Washington, when you're in. Arizona, when you're in. And then if Washington loses, it'll come down to your Cowboys versus the Giants. One of those teams whoever wins that.
How disgusting.
An 11 we're going to be in a scenario where the NFC East is going to have a 7-9 playoff team
or a
6-10.
No, anyway, I think they would be 7-9 too. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So
7-9.
A 7-9 NFC East champion is in, and potentially an 11-5 second place AFC Colts team could be out. That's just bananas. So with all that under the kind of out there, I'm looking at playoffs. The Dolphins to make the playoffs -278 feels like that's probably a good bet, and there's a reason there. You can bet them no, but to lose, and the Ravens, Colts, and Browns would all have to win, which I don't know that that's crazy. You could also, if you like, in some of these scenarios, it may be more advantageous to parlay some of this stuff. So you could take a Ravens, Colts, Browns, Bills parlay, all in the money line, theoretically knocking Miami out. So let me put that in. I'll let you ponder over the Colts. Here, let me read some more so we can talk. So, I'll figure out some math. So we got the Colts are -250. The Ravens are -1430, which is pretty insane. The Titans are also -1430, so they're both expected to get in. You could bet. I don't know if the Titans and Ravens could both make the playoffs, but 8-1 on either of those teams it feels like a interesting bet. The Bears are minus 152 to make the playoffs. And I was actually looking. Because you could bet Arizona and the Packers to win, and that would only be plus 127. So I'd almost rather just bet the Bears to lose, like plus 125. The Rams are minus 500 to make the playoffs, plus 370.
Really?
Which is So if Arizona and Chicago win, the Rams are out.
Yeah. So okay. So right there, one of the Rams scenarios, I would assume that they're going to be it's looking likely that they're going to lose this week to the Cardinals because not having Jared Goff, not having Cooper Kupp either, and their backfield in shambles right now with everyone injured, and Kyler Murray playing for Arizona. I would go with Arizona to win that game, and then LA, all they would need is Chicago to lose. Is that their scenario?
Yeah. So if LA, let me see where's the Rams. Rams, so the Rams need if Arizona beats the Rams and the Packers beat the Bears, or no, the Bears beat the Packers, then the Rams are out.
But if the Packers beat the Bears,
then the
Bears are out, or then the Bears or the Cardinals are out if LA wins or loses.
Right.
If LA beats the Cardinals, they're in.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
So if the Rams win, they're in. If the Packers beat the Bears, they're in. So that either of those things happen. So you could bet, the Packers, and you could bet Arizona.
So I think that brings up a really good point, because when you're looking at the Packers and Bears game to start off there, the Packers haven't sealed up the number 1 seed yet, and this is probably the most important year ever to have the number 1 seed, being the only team that has a bye, and no team wants to go to Lambeau in January to play these games. So by no means are the Packers going to be resting their players. So for me, this is a game where I would actually be looking to bet the first half to see if Green Bay can get out to a lead against Chicago. And then with the possibility that if they think they can hang on, they start to kind of, sit on the ball in the second half or even take Rodgers out in the fourth quarter. It was seeing the Bears make a comeback to cover the second half line, but I still think the Packers are going to win this game, and I think they're going to try to jump out to an early lead here. So for me, this is a game that I'll be betting the first half, now that we're talking about this pretty heavily here on Green Bay.
Yeah, there's a few teams that I think looking at the first half is a much better way to go, Buffalo being one.
Yes.
Potentially Kansas City. But we'll talk about those when we get into the games. I was just looking because I mentioned, we were talking the Dolphins to miss the playoffs is plus 220. And in that scenario, the Browns, the Ravens, the Colts, and the Bills would all have to win. If you parlay all 4 of those teams on the money line, it's only plus 154. So you're actually getting better value. So you want to play both sides of this and figure out the scenarios that make the most sense to find where you're going to make the most value. I think my favorite bet might be the Bears to miss at plus 125, getting plus money on a situation that feels pretty likely.
Yeah.
But I guess with the Wolford wagon under center, there is a chance that both Arizona and the Packers win. That feels
that seems like the most likely result of these games this weekend is that Chicago gets left out because Green Bay is still playing for something, and Arizona is in a must-win situation against a depleted Rams team.
I also like the idea of a Rams plus 370 to miss the playoffs, because with a backup quarterback, and maybe it's no Cooper Kupp, there is some issues there. Arizona wins that game, and then the Packers, pretend like they're going to do stuff, and then they're locked into where they're locked in, and they're like, oh, we're not really worried about it, and then they end up playing all their backups in the second half. Let's let AJ Dillon featured prominently in my week 17 roster. I'll talk about that off the show, but that almost 4-1 on that feels like a decent value as well. This is all per DraftKings Sportsbook, right? By the way, that's where I'm pulling these playoff odds. So check your book and see if you can't find some interesting prices. The Browns, if the Browns lose, and we'll see what's going on there. There's COVID concerns again. There's a lot going on. They look like garbage against the Jets. If the Browns lose and the Colts win, and Colts play Jacksonville, you're getting, what's the Browns? The Browns are plus 425
to miss the playoffs.
So
see, just going to that game right there, I understand that Ben Roethlisberger isn't playing, but I haven't heard any word out of Pittsburgh that really.
It sounds like just Ben's missing the game.
Well, okay, so that being said, I take it back. I did see, so TJ Watt's not going to play, and neither is, I think, Cameron Hayward or TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, and Marquise Pouncey. They're all going to sit. But as far as the rest of the guys, the rest of the skill position players, the running backs, the rest of the defense, Minkah Fitzpatrick, I haven't seen anything about them sitting. So this is still a game where this is the reason why we picked the Steelers this year as like probably my favorite bet of the year to go over their win total and the win division, was the fact that this team was loaded last year on the defensive side of the ball, still won 8 games with crap at quarterback. And now they get to
Hodges played quarterback for this team. Duck Hodges.
Yes. And now they're going to get a Browns team who is dealing with all these COVID issues, who just getting these wide receivers back at practice. Currently, I'm looking at Bovada. The Steelers are a 9-point dog here. I'm going to take that.
They're plus 330 on the money line.
I'm taking that. I'm definitely taking them with the points, and I'll probably include them in a money line parlay just for the mere fact that their defense is going to go out there and try to prove some things this weekend.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Like I'm looking, I was going to parlay them with Indy, which is the thing they need to miss the playoffs. But I would rather just take the plus 330 and not really worry about the other crap going on and having the Colts be weird. Okay. I think that pretty much does it for playoff scenarios. I think, I don't know if you want to take a shot on the Ravens or the Titans to miss the playoffs. It feels pretty out there. The Ravens would be the one that would make the most sense. Like if the Ravens lose, the Browns and Colts win, they're out. So at 8-1, I don't hate that. The Titans seem to have a hell of a lot more outs, and I think that the fact that they have the same odds is kind of ludicrous.
And I don't see Baltimore losing to Cincinnati.
I don't know. Yeah. But we didn't see the Browns losing to the Jets. We didn't see a lot of things.
That is the Browns.
Yeah.
And the surging Jets, the best team in football right now. Think about it. They could have potentially ended 2 teams' playoff hopes.
They could have had Trevor Lawrence, and now they're gonna ruin Justin Fields. I'm so disappointed. I really hope they take Penei Sewell, and I don't have to worry about my boy Fields going to the Big Apple. Okay, Brian, let's jump into it. Week 17 pick. So with that in mind, with everything set, what number jumps out, grabs your attention, says this is a side I want to be a part of? We can start with those first half odds, or we can look at some more full game stuff. Where's your mind going?
All right. So the first line that jumped out to me earlier in the week actually was I saw Tampa Bay as a 6-point favorite at home against Atlanta in a game that Tampa, the NFC wildcard teams right now are sitting there trying to get that 5 seed for the chance to play the 7-9 division champion of the NFC East. Now, Tampa Bay, if they can win this game, they're potentially sitting there at number 5, and they're going to get to play either Dallas or Washington, 2 teams that, or even the Giants, 3 teams that they should absolutely destroy in the playoffs. And it's, they would probably rather face them than to fall down a slot and have to face, say, the third best team in the conference, which is either going to be New Orleans, Seattle, or Green Bay. Nobody wants to play those teams in the first round on the road. So I think Tampa Bay is going to jump out in this game really early. And, I like their number first half -3, but I'm looking at them as a 6.5, 7-point favorite at home against the Falcons. That's one of my favorite bets this week.
Yeah, they're pretty much 7 across the board. There is a 6.5 at MGM that you can get if you can get to that book. I don't hate that. 69% of the bets, almost all the money is coming in on Tampa. The one thing I will say, and we'll get to talk about this, we will be back each and every week breaking down all the playoff matchups. I might be be looking at whoever plays Tampa in round 1, especially if it's the Giants or Washington, taking them to beat the Bucks. I have major questions about Tampa. I think we'll see what we see this week, but like that game against Detroit was that I don't think that's indicative of what we've seen the past few weeks. But maybe they're finding their stride at the right time. Maybe they kick the crap out of Atlanta this week, beat them by 3 touchdowns, and roll towards the NFC Championship game. We'll see, but definitely something. I want to talk Titans Texans. 7.5 feels like too much. I know the Texans have a lot of issues stopping the ground game, and if Derrick Henry can run all day, then maybe they win 42-14. Demolish them all day long, and it's not really a contest. But with Deshaun Watson back there, the offense has been cooking, and the Titans defense has big problems in the secondary. I am very concerned as a Titans fan going into the playoffs after that lackluster effort against Green Bay. I mean, we're gonna have to face some dynamic offenses if we want to go to the Super Bowl, including Kansas City, which we saw how that went last time. So I am a little concerned about this week. That 7.5 feels like too much, and I feel like the Titans will do enough to get the win, but not necessarily enough to get the cover. So I'm going to be on Houston plus 7.5 as much as I hate to take it.
Yeah, I like that call a lot here because Tennessee's weakness on defense so far, over the last half of the year has definitely been their pass defense. And what has Houston been doing as good as anybody recently with Deshaun Watson back there is, throwing the ball. He's super elusive, so he can get away from Tennessee's kind of up and down pass rush. And then, Houston, they've gotten David Johnson more involved over these last couple games as a runner and as a receiver. He ran for over 100 yards this last week. So I like the Houston call, but I'll be betting the over in this game, over 56, getting the ball in a dome. Houston cannot stop the run for anything. And now you're getting Derrick Henry with hopes of reaching 2,000 yards. He needs just over 220 in this game. I think they're going to try to get him there this week. And, if Houston's trailing in this, they're going to go extreme pass heavy. Tennessee's defense, like I said, is not very good at stopping the pass. And so I think that Houston does enough to stay close and keep Tennessee from just sitting on the ball and not trying to put points on the board. So I like the over 56 as one of the bets that I'll be putting on my card.
Yeah. But see, okay, maybe in a 42-14, it doesn't really matter. But if the Titans dominate and Derrick Henry runs wild, doesn't the under cash in that scenario? Or do you think they can score enough points in the Deshaun Watson with some garbage time points gets you to the 58, 60 points?
Well, no, I see the thing about Derrick Henry is that when he's getting those kind of numbers on the ground, it's because he's breaking off those big chunk runs for 15, 20 yards. And that's a fifth of the field right there pretty much to get in field goal range. So I think in that scenario where Derrick Henry is running all over them, I think you see him break off a couple of big ones in this game. Tennessee has a couple, 3-minute touchdown drives with play action passes, and we see Tannehill go deep and score touchdowns. And then, Houston can definitely do that with Brandon Cooks and Kiki QT and David Johnson now, and Deshaun Watson could even break off a big run of his own. So that's why I like the over in pretty much every scenario of this. So Titans blowout, or in case like we like it, Houston to stay, keep it close.
Sure. Let's talk Cowboys Giants. I think that's going to be one of the compelling games. Opened up at your boys plus 3.5. It's down to -1. Pick them some places. In New York, how are you feeling going into this game? Like, this is basically, which money line do you want? Who do you think is going to win the game? And as great as they looked last week against the Niners, or was that 2 weeks ago?
That was 2 weeks.
Who'd they roll last week? Philly. Now they have to beat the Giants. How are we feeling?
I mean, as much as I would like them to lose so that way they can get some better draft capital in this game, I think they're the hottest team in the division right now. I think, and the side of the ball that has done it, yes, we saw Andy Dalton go for over 350. We saw him throw for 3 touchdowns. We saw all 3 receivers absolutely kick ass. We saw Zeke get over 100 yards, but it's the defense, surprisingly enough, that is creating turnovers finally. They have a plus turnover differential for the first time in 2 years going over these past 3 games. And I think that's where they're really going to come out on top in this game is that Daniel Jones has been a turnover machine for the Giants. And with the Cowboys getting a bunch of pressure like we've seen the last 2 weeks on a Giants offensive line that is starting, rookie Thomas over there on the tackle. I think he's going to been a turnstile, especially with DeMarcus Lawrence, and Randy Gregory looks like the Randy Gregory of old over the past couple games. So I think Dallas is going to be able to control this game early in a low scoring affair. And I think that they're going to wind up on top. Like it's going to be low 20s to about 16-17 kind of score.
So my concern in that scenario is that the Giants win this game. I think if they can keep it low, like we've seen them have competitive games, like that game against Seattle was a perfect example of a high impact offense that came in and just could not find its traction. I think if the Cowboys can open it up and put up 30 points, I don't think the Giants have the goods to compete. So it's gonna. I think this is gonna be a sit back and watch game. But I kind of like the Giants. A +1. But
I will say, the Giants are built on defense with James Bradbury out there. He's able to lock down team's number one wide receiver. But if we've seen anything over the past couple games for the Cowboys, is that Andy Dalton is not afraid to go away from Amari Cooper. He's been targeting Michael Gallup extremely heavily. Finally, it's coming to fruition. Our call on Michael Gallup. And they still have CeeDee Lamb, who we haven't even seen his breakout potential yet. And then, he still has Dalton Schultz. Zeke looked refreshed last week. Tony Pollard, probably the most explosive player on offense right now. Didn't even really get involved last game. So,
yeah, told you. Okay, where are we going next? What game tickles your fancy?
All right, so I kind of wanted to hit on that Miami Dolphins and Buffalo Bills game. When I first saw the line, I saw Buffalo. I think it opened as like Buffalo was like a 2-point favorite or something. And then it's sitting at around 1 right now. Now, I understand that Miami needs to win. Buffalo has their playoff fate sealed with their division title. But they're just like Pittsburgh. They're playing for that number 2 seed. And, seeding sometimes does matter depending on matchups. And Buffalo wants as many games as possible up there in Orchard Park. So playing at home, I haven't even checked the weather. It's probably going to be cold up there. And it's going to be Tua with no bailout from Ryan Fitzpatrick now that he has COVID. The weapons on the outside for Miami are still questionable. I know they got the running game going, but Buffalo's not just going to sit all their players and just sit on the ball going into their first playoff game after last year's debacle in the first round against Houston. Sean McDermott is going to make sure these guys are ready and playing well going into the playoffs. So I see this game being Buffalo plays the majority of their guys like 3 quarters and is, in the lead for the majority of the day. And they hold on and they beat Miami and possibly eliminate them from playoff contention.
I like the Bills in the first half. I think Josh Allen and company play a half. And then I think it depends on how the Steelers game is going too. If the Steelers can keep it close.
But I don't think people are going to be scoreboard watching.
I don't know. I think Buffalo's kind of locked into where they're locked into, and it doesn't really benefit them. But if you like Buffalo, you can find some decent numbers. Our friends over at Bovada, I think, have it at 1.5. Most places have it at 3 or 3.5. So if you like Bills, that's the place to go. And then the pack. I'm trying to find a first half line. I can't find it because there's a lot of questions about who may or may not be playing. Let's see. I am looking at the Packers minus 3.5 in the first half.
Ooh, I got it -3.
There you go.
Yeah. Like you said, that's probably. If not my favorite, one of my favorite bets this week is Packers first half line here. Knowing that they need to win to secure the number 1 seed.
Yeah. So because if they win, they get the first seed, or if New Orleans,
So I think if they finish in a 3-way tie, I think it's going to wind up being like Seattle or something.
Seattle gets it if it's a 3-way tie, but if since the Packers beat New Orleans, if Seattle loses, or no, wait, if New Orleans loses and Seattle wins, then they're not in a three-way tie, and then I think the Packers get it in that scenario. I think basically the Packers have a few outs to get it, unless they lose, or if they lose, and then I don't know. Like if it's a three-way tie, it's Seattle. If it's not a three-way tie, I think it's the Packers. New Orleans has a shot at getting it too, right? I think if Seattle and the Packers lose and New Orleans wins, I don't know.
I think so.
It's far too confusing. I had enough. But yeah, I'm going to be on the Packers in the first half, and kind of let the lines fall where they do. What else are we looking at?
I mean, like I was saying, I like my Cowboys -1 this week, and then I'm also on the Cardinals this week as a 3-point favorite on the road. I know it's kind of gross because they have not been consistent. They don't play well on the road in games that you think they're in a smash spot. The only time they did well was against the Giants in a game that we all thought the Giants were going to cover. So I think the Cardinals are going to right the ship this week against a depleted Rams team, and I do think they get the job done down there in LA.
Yeah, if they weren't coming off that loss to San Francisco, I think I would feel much better about the Rams. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird. The same with Seattle and the Niners. Like,
yes,
the Niners and Seattle always play each other tough, no matter who's good and who's bad. But I think this is a smash spot, especially the Niners coming off of the win. I have a hard time seeing C.J. Beathard carry the Niners to 2 straight wins. But
and Seattle's defense has been fantastic over their last 4 or 5 games. Like that's not getting talked about enough, that they're limiting teams to like under 14 points a game or something.
Yeah, their offense
been really good. Yeah,
it's not the same offense that we saw in the first half, but maybe that's helping their defense play better. I don't know.
Possibly.
Any other games? Like the Chiefs are 3.5-point underdogs at home, and I know Mahomes isn't going to play. We haven't heard official about Kill or Kelsey or any of those other guys, but like the Chargers as a favorite against everybody has not gone well. Should we just take Kansas City and not like Kansas City has had issues covering the spread most of the year anyways, because they're always overvalued. But I wonder if taking Mahomes out, if they're actually kind of undervalued against teams that has struggled to cover the spread. And this might be a good spot to jump on them.
Well, to that point, we already saw Keenan Allen got ruled out this week because of COVID protocol. I'm pretty sure Joey Bosa got ruled out this week because of a knee issue again. So the Chargers defense is going to be without their best pass rusher against an immobile quarterback. So this would have been the game to take advantage of that. And then they're without their best target on the outside. So we don't really know how many of the defensive players are going to sit for Kansas City, but that there's going to be some sort of pride going into this game. I know they want to rest their guys going into the playoffs, but they're not going to want to rest all these guys 2 straight weeks, because remember, they also have a first round bye in the playoffs. So I'm going to assume that the majority of these starters play at least the first half, and even a half of the Chiefs starters against this Chargers team makes me think that they're going to be able to cover the 3.5 that they're getting handily.
Yeah. As someone who's rolling into the playoffs I play a 2-week playoff, so I play week 17. I don't want to hear it in the comments, but I have Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. The idea of them playing even a half scares the crap out of me, because I feel like they could all play and produce enough points to in half of football to not kill me. But yeah, I mean, the total set at 43.5. That is also interesting in a game where if it's going to be a lot of Le'Veon Bell, a lot of Austin Eckler, a lot of slow, a lot of not much going on, the under might be in play as well here.
I'm really excited to see what Chad Henny can do as one of my favorite Michigan quarterbacks. I haven't really got to see him play much over the last few years, but
he's been playing. He's like 70 now, right?
Yeah, he's one of those guys that just will never go away. But yeah, I'm excited to watch that as a Michigan fan.
Well, yeah, because you're not playing in the playoffs, so we can talk about that. Any other game that any other games you want to hit on before we talk the college football minute?
I do want to say that I think this is another spot with the Ravens. I know we kind of let off with their playoff chances, but I'll be hammering their -13 this week in a game that they need to win, and against an opponent who struggles stopping the run. with the Baltimore Ravens offense starting to kind of come around. We're seeing them be able to get the ball downfield. We're seeing Lamar Jackson get Marquise Brown more involved. We're seeing Mark Andrews seemingly be healthier than he's been all season. I think that this is a game where Baltimore puts everything together and they get steamed up and ready to go for the playoff run.
Yeah, I'll be on the first half. I'm not going to mess around with the full game. I have a weird, like, they win by like 10 or 11, and it opened up at almost 2 touchdowns. It's coming down to about 12.5 now. So I have some concerns that if they get up too big, that they really pull their horses and just like kind of cruise.
Well, we saw it with the Giants last week too. The Giants almost had the back door.
Yep. Okay. Anything else?
No. Let's get into these.
Okay, we got a lot. The college football minute is definitely going to be a lot longer than a normal minute. Brian, let's start with the college football playoff games, and then we'll sprinkle in other stuff. I don't know. I have my pick somewhere. Let's start with Alabama, Notre Dame. One I feel probably the best about, and I've already made a substantial wager on. I'm going to roll with the Tide. Go ahead and give me your thoughts while I pull up a note that I have.
Well, without doing any research, just by what I've seen this year and by my detest for the Golden Domers, I just think that this is a spot where Alabama and Nick Saban are out to prove that they are still the top, the cream of the crop, the best team in college football, the dynasty in the sport, and they're absolutely going to crush Notre Dame right now. I got it at 19.5. I think they're going to be covering that sometime in the third quarter. I don't think they'll be killing them by that in the first half, but I do think that Alabama will wind up winning this game pretty substantially and definitely hit their team total too of over 42.5. I think right now I like Alabama to lay a 50 spot on Notre Dame this week.
If you like that, then take the over in the game as well. I think it's 65. Trying to look. Oh, so this is all right. I'm just rambling right now. So the one thing that is interesting is Alabama is 3-6 against the spread in college football playoff games, and have failed to cover each of its past 3. So that's interesting. But there's also Notre Dame. They
suck in the college football playoff and in big bowl games.
Yeah. I had a note on them as underdog or facing SEC teams or something. I don't know. They struggle big time in big spots. They're basically like what happened to them against Clemson. So that it's good to see we're on the same side here. I think it makes a lot of sense. And yeah.
And then not to leave the game real quick. Alabama's only scored under 42 4 times this year, and 3 of those were 41, 41, 42. And then in their first game, they scored 38 against Missouri. And in every other game, they scored 48 or more, and they eclipsed 50 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times this year. This is against a Notre Dame team that, just like Clemson, absolutely steamrolled them early. So, and that offense, as good as it is with Trevor Lawrence, is not as good as what we've seen Alabama this season.
Yep. Let's talk about the other one, Clemson, Ohio State. Ohio State is a 7.5-point underdog. This is only the second time under Ryan Day the Buckeyes have been an underdog. The other time, last year against Clemson. So I'll let you have the floor. Where's your head at with this game?
So this game's so hard for me because Ohio State, their last game, it didn't look pretty. I really liked them up until obviously finding out that they were down pretty much half of their starting offense. And it'll be interesting to see how much endurance these guys have built up over the last couple of weeks, getting back onto the field. And for that reason, I like the under in the first half, under 34 here, under 34, because Ohio State is going to have to come out here, flatten the ball. We're going to have to see them go more towards the old school Big Ten 3 yards in a cloud of dust against this Clemson team and try to establish the run early in order to keep this game close, with the hopes of making this like last year's matchup where Ohio State pretty much had this game if it wasn't for wide receivers slipping in the end zone. So
yeah, or a terrible reversal of a very clear fumble.
Yes,
that should have been Ohio State ball. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Yes, Justin Fields made a terrible throw at the end of the game, and that cost him. And they had a chance to still win it, but yeah, that was really bad. Couple notes on this game. Since their 2016 loss, Syracuse, Clemson has won 43 straight games as a favorite. And as a favorite of at least a touchdown. Sorry, I'm trying to read and talk, and it's just my brain's not having it.
It's been a long year.
Only 5 of those games were decided by single digits. So most of them, when they're favored by at least a touchdown, they not only do they win, but they cover. And then so Ohio State is 5-3 in bowl games. They are 5-0 versus anyone not named Clemson, and they are 0-3 against Clemson in bowl games. So that's not a great sign going in. I do worry that if they lean, like Trey Sermon was incredible against Northwestern, and obviously I want him to be involved. But I think if you're going to beat Clemson, you can't do that, because we saw Notre Dame do that and it did not work. And now maybe that's more about Notre Dame, less about what Ohio State is. But getting all their pieces back, it should be really helpful. Have Chris Olave back.
Yes.
There was obviously some issues in the passing game against Northwestern. Some very frustrating moments for sure. Ended up covering because it was Northwestern, not Clemson. That kind of stuff happens against Clemson, you're toast. Also, that defense looked much, much better. I do wonder about the offensive coordinator thing. The Clemson's OC will not be at this game. Trevor Lawrence has played a long time. He's ready to go to the pros. He's freaking incredible. Maybe it doesn't matter, but maybe there's a spot where they run it instead of throw it. If they go to the wrong play, they do the wrong thing, and it creates that one moment where the turnover happens, where they go for it on 4th down and don't get it. They punt when they should have gone for it on 4th and 1, and the Ohio State ends up going and scores a touchdown. I do wonder about that and how that kind of works. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it means something, but I think if you like Ohio State, you think they can keep it within the number. I think you take them on the money line. I think if you think Clemson is the better team, you take them with the points and don't overthink it. Since 2008, single-digit underdogs have covered the spread 52% of the time. Of the 203 that covered the game, 167 or 82.3% have won the game outright. So if your team covers 80% of the time, they've won.
Woo.
So if you like Ohio State, you take Ohio State on the money line, because you're getting yourself a lot better number. And obviously that not every time, 80%. But if you want the safety and to be in that 20%, sure. But I think if Clemson wins, they kick the crap out of Ohio State. And I'm not betting this game because I'm already going to be a basket case of emotions on Friday night. But if I were betting this game, I would be taking Clemson minus the 7.5, because I think I have very, very big concerns with the offense not looking as good as it has, the defense not being quite as talented as last year, that this game gets kind of gross and they lose by a couple touchdowns. But I really hope I'm wrong there, and I will be rooting like hell for me to be wrong. But
I'll go with your gut here, and I'll be happy to watch Clemson cover the line in this game. I just, as a Big Ten person and a Michigan fan, like just knowing what this Ohio State team is built on and how much resilience they have going up against opponents that think they have their number or anything like that. I mean, I saw it last year. I bet against them in that semifinal against Clemson last season, and only to see Ohio State be the better team for the majority of the game. And this is a scenario where you're getting a Clemson team that, as good as they've been this year, you've seen chinks in the armor. You've seen holes in their offense. You've seen holes in their defense. You've seen games where their defense has absolutely been exploited.
I mean, outside of that Notre Dame game, the defense has looked pretty bad most of the season. And that is something I'm concerned about, or not. I'm excited about, because if that defense shows up, Ohio State can have a field day against that defense.
Well, and then the big thing too that Ohio State has to their advantage that a team like Notre Dame doesn't is the ability to go over top if Chris Olave is healthy, and it's the same guy that we've seen throughout his career, that is the one thing that Notre Dame does not present, is a guy who can just go past the safeties. And if Ohio State is able to extend the field in that way and open up the zones for Justin Fields to hit running backs out of the backfield in the screen game, to open up those one-on-one opportunities for him to escape the pocket and run, I think this game is one of those nail biters that we saw last season. And with you, like you're saying, if you're going to take Ohio State with the points, just take them to win the game, because they're good enough to do that.
Yep. Travis Etienne has not been the same guy. I think if they can slow him, that means a big thing. Last year, they obviously had Damon Arnett and Jeff Okudah, which was huge, but Clemson's receivers this year also don't have T. Higgins, also don't have Justin Ross.
Exactly.
They're obviously loaded and still incredibly talented, but they're not so at the same level as they were last year. So this
is a quarterback show this week.
Yeah, I'm really excited. But I mean, this is arguably the number 1 and 2 pick in the NFL draft, depending on what the Jets do. So that out of the way, we have other games to jump into. So Brian, hit me with what you're thinking from the college landscape for tomorrow. So New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Wait, today's New Year's Eve. We're recording on New Year's Eve. So New Year's Day, the day after. Where's your head going for the college football minute?
All right. So kind of like how you always talk about, and I'm going to go with this bet here. I'm going to be taking Cincinnati on the money line plus 225 right now, going up against Georgia in the Peach Bowl. I think Cincinnati has a ton to prove here, and Georgia, like you said this last week, how interested is this team going to be coming off a pretty disappointing season, with a lot of guys looking towards the NFL draft? And who knows, maybe we're going to see a scenario much like yesterday where we see half the team decide that they don't want to play, they're going to opt out.
If they had an NFL quarterback, I might be with you. But JT Daniels is not an NFL guy, at least not yet. I think he comes back. I think George Pickens comes back, some of those pieces. And with that being said, I'm on the dogs minus the 7. I think they win. I think they cover. And I think they make an AAC team look silly on the field.
All right. So that's one of our disagreements this week. All right. I like that game. I'm not going to be wagering on Auburn Northwestern because I have zero interest in watching Bo Nix versus a who's who of nobodies on Notre Dame's side. So
you mean Northwestern?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, on Northwestern.
I'm on the under
level as me.
I'm on the under on that game. I actually like Northwestern. When you're talking about motivation, you're talking about one side that fired their coach that significantly underachieved versus a Northwestern team that Pat Fitzgerald won AP Coach of the Year or College Football Coach of the Year, whatever it's called, is going to have his team motivated, is going to have his team ready to go. This team that significantly outplayed what many expected from them. But if I was backing a side, I would take Northwestern. But for this pod, I am taking the under in that game. I think it's low scoring. I think it's close, and I think the under hits pretty easily.
Okay, all right. And then so for my next one here, I'm looking at I like Mississippi getting 8.5 against an Indiana team without their do everything quarterback there in Penix. This team is loaded on offense. They're going to be able to get the ball up and down the field. I know Indiana has looked really good over the second half of the year. They went wire to wire with Ohio State, but Mississippi's athletes, I think, are just going to be a little bit too much for Indiana on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to be playing it safe here with Iowa State. I'm going to take them on the money line. I know it's 1-2, but I mean, screw it. I'm going to take Iowa State minus the line, minus 4.5. I think that their defense is something that Oregon hasn't seen this season, having played in the Pac-12, which shouldn't even be considered a Power 5 conference anymore because those teams are just trash. Iowa State is a top 10 team this year. And if we were in any other season that played a full 12 games and they had more opportunities to garner more wins, I think we'd be talking more about them as one of the teams that were left out of the college football playoff. And then
let's talk about this game because I'm 100% with you. I'm rolling with the Cyclones. If you watch the Civil War, if you watch Oregon State, Oregon's defense versus good running backs is absolute Swiss cheese, and they are facing Breece Hall, who could be one of the best running backs in all of college football.
And they're giving up, I think, around 160 yards a game on the ground too, against the Pac-12.
Breece Hall is going for 2 bills. The Iowa State is going to crush Oregon in this game. I I bet Penei Sewell doesn't play. Obviously, a top 5 pick. You don't want to get rolled up. And yeah, I think I'm big. It's Matt Campbell. Like, if you guys can get Matt Campbell up in Michigan, like, fall all over yourselves to make it happen, because he's totally worth it. But in big games, when it matters most, Matt Campbell shows up in a big way.
All right, and then for my last one, I'm going to be taking North Carolina with the touchdown and a half against Texas A&M. I know Texas A&M is, what are they, number 5 right now? They play in the SEC, that's just mightier than thou conference in college football. But North Carolina, they can put points on the board. I think with Sam Howell back there playing quarterback, I like their chances in this game with Mac Brown and all of his experience over his tenure there and at Texas and all of his other previous stops in bowl games. So give me North Carolina with 7.5.
Yeah, if you can get over a touchdown, I'm 1,000% with you. I also kind of like, we were talking about a little bit before the show, but the over there, I do wonder how, North Carolina has some issues on the back end, and Kellen Mond's been pretty solid all year long. That offense of Texas A&M has been able to put up points. So I kind of like the over in that spot as well. Yeah, so like I said, I'm with you on Iowa State. I'm under in Auburn Northwestern. I am taking Georgia. I got it at 7. It's up to 7.5. I will take it for this podcast. Bama, Clemson, and I'm taking the fighting Wildcats of Kentucky, Carolina State.
Ooh, I like that call.
It's only 2.5. If it gets to 3, I don't know that I'm going to jump on it, but I think at 2.5, I like it quite a bit. NC State has been much better than people expected this year, but they still have a lot of questions, especially at quarterback. Kentucky's offense isn't great, but when they play, average to below average teams, they tend to play much, much better. And I think this is a big spot for Kentucky. So Kentucky minus the 2.5 is also on my card. Brian, with that being said, with college football in the books, if you have made it this far, we thank you for hanging on with us. If you like and enjoy what we're doing, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you rate, review on iTunes or podcast. We haven't really been going there. I'm doing a lot of YouTube and just kind of leaving it there. If you would listen to it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whatever, and you want us to get back to putting it there, let us know in the comments. Happy to do it. But I'm guessing if you're watching on YouTube, you prefer it on YouTube. But let me know. But with that being said, Brian Twining. Oh, and also let us know in the comments your best bets for the week. NFL, college football. We're always looking for some feedback. Some people have dropped some nice picks in there, so we're always looking for that. With that being said, Brian, what is your Week 17 best bet?
All right, this is going to be a homer pick. It's like the first time all season I've done it, but I'm going to be going with my Dallas Cowboys -1 on the road in New York, with the chance to win the division. I think that this team comes out a much improved defense from what we've seen over the first 14 games of the year. I just like the Cowboys in this spot. Their offense is rolling right now. And like I said, the defense is creating turnovers. So give me the Cowboys -1 as my best bet for the week.
I like it. I like it a lot. Sheesh, that's a move. Just watching some lines move. The Rams aren't going to make my card. I was really, really tempted to put the Rams on there just because I think sometimes when like Jared Goff, I like Jared Goff probably more than I probably should. But how much of a downgrade is it really to somebody like John Wolford? I feel like McVay can scheme it up. I feel like they can.
Yes, I agree with you there. I feel like he could scheme it up, but what the Rams do best is their offense is predicated on motion and quick passing to the wide receivers out of the backfield, what is this John Wolford, whatever the hell his name is?
Wolford wagon, he can run, he can
Wolford
do stuff.
Terriers,
he can also hand it off. You know what? What did the Niners do last week to beat the Arizona? They ran on them. They had quick passes.
But who's going to play running back for the Rams?
I don't care.
That's the thing.
Care. You know what, Brian? Because you said that, Rams +3, best bet.
Oh.
Boom.
Okay, I will not be allowed to show this to my wife for all those that know, because she is a Cardinals fan, and Kyle will
It's
not be
okay.
allowed to
You
talk.
can bet a Larry Fitzgerald anytime touchdown and win that one. I look like a fool. So
That already hit this year, though.
he's not scoring another one. Okay,
No.
Brian, let's hit that recap. Give me your college plays, give me your NFL plays, and recap your best bet.
All right. Since it's the last week of the year, we're going pretty heavy here. So I'm going Cincinnati Bearcats plus 225 on the money line against Georgia. I like Iowa State to cover the 4.5 this week pretty easily. I'm going to be taking the North Carolina Tar Heels with 7.5 against Texas A&M on the 2nd of January. And then for the college football playoff, going backwards slightly, I like Alabama to absolutely destroy Notre Dame to cover the 19.5. And then in the other semifinal game, I like the under 34 in the first half between Ohio State and Clemson. Now to the NFL side of the ball here, I'm going to be taking Baltimore minus 13. I think that the offensive starters stay in the game pretty much the whole game, and they jump out to a huge lead, possibly, hopefully 3 touchdowns, so that way they don't get the backdoor cover. I like Green Bay minus 3 in the first half against Chicago in a game that I do think they will cover the game line 2 of 5, but to be safe, I like them first half minus 3. Give me Dallas first half team total over 10.5 in a game that I think that they will have to score in order to stay ahead of these Giants team. So I like them first half over 10.5. I already said they're my best bet for the week at -1, the Cowboys for the game. And then I like the Eagles money line against Washington plus 115. If I think the Cowboys are going to get into the playoffs, I'm betting the Eagles to beat Washington too. So give me the Eagles as my last bet on the card.
Ooh, Eagles Cowboys 2-team money line parlay sounds kind of fun. I might hop on that with you. Okay, so I'll start on Friday. I will also tweet some of the early picks out just so I can get them out to you, because I know it can be hard, especially with and stuff. Hopefully, you'll be hungover on the couch. If you need some picks between now and then, let me know. We're going with Georgia. We're taking that -7.5. We're taking the under on Auburn and Northwestern. I am taking Alabama minus the 19.5. I am taking the Clemson Tigers -7.5, as much as I hate to say it. We are headed to Saturday when I am taking Kentucky minus the 2.5. We are headed to Iowa State minus the 4 or 4.5. Ideally the 4. And I'm gonna take UNC plus the 7.5 to join you, Brian. I think that sounds fun. Let me see. Make sure I got all that. Yep, all my Saturday or call plays over to Sunday when the Texans plus 7.5, the Steelers first half plus 5.5, the Packers first half minus 3.5, the Ravens first half minus 7.5, and my best bet, the Los Angeles Rams plus 3 at home. Sprinkle that money line, get. I think the Wolford wagon carries them into the playoffs, and we have a playoff caliber Rams, and it's going to be really fun to bet against some of these garbage teams in round 1 of the playoffs. But we'll get to talk all about that next week. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to y'all next time. Have a happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2021, Brian. Everything's going to get better.
Better years ahead.
That's what they keep telling us. I don't know. All right. Later, everyone.